Welcome back to Grit and Growth. This is part 2 of our conversation.
And if you haven't had a chance to check out part 1 yet, you might want to start there. It sets up a whole lot of what we're diving into today.
In the second half, we go deeper. More great stories, more impactful lessons, and a few transformational moments that really stuck with us.
I'm Justin Simpkins, founder and director of Prairie Hockey Academy, storyteller, passionate about growth, and reader of books on leadership and personal development.
And I'm Shane Sowden, head coach of Briarcrest men's basketball, a mentor to coaches and youth who believes leadership starts with the heart and grows through purpose.
In part 2, Brian really opens up the heart of parenting, talking about what it might look like for us to ask permission of our kids and our young athletes in regards to either being a parent or maybe giving them some feedback from their activity. He talks a little bit about speaking identity and true purpose into our athletes as well and our children. And a big quote that he has that he unpacks for us is just, the more money you spend, the less your young athlete enjoys their sport. We'll talk about all that and more in part 2 with Brian Smith. Let's get into it. Brian, welcome back to the podcast. Last week on part 1 of your episode, we really ended it, talking about that car ride home. And just even, you had mentioned there's a lot of studies that show that this big stat we talked about, 70% of kids in North America quitting organized sports by the age of 13. A lot of that can be tied back to the end of the game, the ride home, and that experience. You talked really about, as parents, we just need to connect with our kids on the way home and not correct them. I know that my child, is, like you said, majority are. It's like, I have nothing to talk about after the game. Nope, I don't want to talk about anything, but I'd like to go for ice cream or booster juice or something. Can we do that, Dad? And it's that side. I find myself, and this is my question for you, and I want to get into the psychology side a little bit more. I think you gave some good points in part 1 of what we can do. But for me, and maybe this is really selfish, and I hope others are feeling this way, because I've experienced the parent side on the other piece and I've observed it a lot, I almost swing my pendulum really far the other way, and I'm going, am I swinging it too far? I don't want my child to think I don't. And so I'm just mindful of that almost at the same time. And any insight on that for us?
Yeah, I think as parents, and again, this might differ from a 6-year-old to a 16-year-old, but I don't think we need to be afraid of asking for our kids for feedback on how they experience us. Like, I think if there's fear of, man, I really hope I've swung the pendulum to the other way. I'm not talking about it. I'm showing up. I'm not being the loudmouth in the stands. I'm getting in the car ride home. We're getting ice cream, listening to the radio. And then we get home and we're not talking about the game at all. I think there's space to have a conversation of like, hey, do you experience me as somebody who really enjoys watching you play? Are you experiencing me? Maybe this is the question. Do you need something more from me as your parent when it comes to your basketball career, your experience as a cross-country runner? Like, is there more that you need from me? Are there things that you need me to stop saying? Are there things that you need me to start saying, not seeing? I wouldn't shy away from those conversations just so we don't have to guess. Like, hopefully we have an open and honest enough relationship with our kids where we can get the feedback from them and not just hope that something's going to stick with them.
Yeah, so start asking permission, right? In a lot of ways is what you're saying, and just communicating with them, holding space and listening.
Yeah. And that, Justin, that might even be a great way in the conversation of, hey, I saw some things today that I think would actually help you get better. Can I have permission to share some of those with you? And again, a 6-year-old's going to be like, what are you talking about? A 16-year-old's going to understand, like, Dad's about to give me some advice here on my sport. And we need to be okay with the response either way. Like, one of the books I just got done writing that's out there now, it's called Away Game, A Christian Parent's Guide to Navigating Youth Sports. I co-wrote it with a guy named Ed Uzinski. He asked that very question to one of his youngest kid, who's I think he's 15. And when his kid was running hurdles, he actually said, like, Dad, I don't want any advice from you when it comes to hurdling. Like I get stressed out when you talk to me. And so the best thing I need from you right now is to just like show up and watch. And Ed, like, he has to be okay with that as a dad. He needs to respect, again, his 15 to 16-year-old's kid saying, the best way you can love me as a hurdler right now is just by your presence, not by your words.
We had a really good example of this with a guest from a few episodes ago, Jeff Glassbell, and he said something that hit home with me was he'll ask his sons when he's like, "Do you need me to be dad right now or coach? Like, which hat do you need me to wear?"
That's good. That's so good.
And in that moment, he may want to be coach, but they're like, "I just need you to be dad," and he's like, "Oh, all right," right? And he has to like let go a little bit. And then other times, I think our kids are very self-aware, and sometimes they might want dad, but they're like, no, I actually need to be coached right now. And for them to understand what that means and define that, be like, okay, dad's going to tell me some hard truths right now because he loves me, but he's acting as coach, right? That sort of thing. And asking permission. No, that's real good. I've never thought about like just not just even within sports, but like even asking my own kids, whether it's like from a faith perspective or school or whatever. It's just like, hey, like how can I be better for you in these certain situations? And so no, that's gonna have to do that this week. Put that on the list.
Yeah, and hopefully we can tell too with our kids, like when we give them that coaching type feedback, if they're receptive to it and they're like we can tell if they want more of it, then maybe we push a little harder and we give a little bit more. If we can tell it's just like they're listening, but they're not really wanting to listen, then that's a cue too of like, man, maybe I either need to stop doing it or I need to change my strategy or my tone a little bit. And so I think just an ability to read our kid while we're giving them that feedback is a crucial part of that conversation too.
Yeah. This is good. Something that jumped out in your book for me is you had a statement, and this is where we're moving forward. We're past the car rides and everything like that, and our child, and hopefully they're feeling joy in it. But you said in The Christian Athlete that the more money you spend, the less your young athlete enjoys their sport. Now, this is maybe a bit of a hot take, but I think there's a lot behind this. Let's talk through this a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a hot take. There's this natural study that was done. Researchers have found out that there is a direct relationship between how much money parents are spending on their kids' sport experience and the kids' ability to actually enjoy said sport, which is crazy to think about, right? Like especially with how much money we're spending. But like, let's talk about why that might be. Well-intentioned parents, right? Let's keep saying that. Well-intentioned. We all want what's best for our kids.
Yep.
But sports now, culture is saying, hey, what's best for your kid is probably going to be the $600 bat and not the hand-me-down $100 bat. It's traveling across state or maybe even country lines. It's specializing early. It is joining the elite club squad that's maybe a little bit further down the road than the local team that you normally play with. And what's happening with our kids, again, we don't have to guess. This should seem pretty intuitive the more you think about it. When they see how much we are investing into them, they're beginning to go like, oh, this is really important. It's really important that now that I have this $600 bat, that I make contact with the ball and it actually goes a little bit further than it did the last time. It's really important that we're driving an hour for this competition and staying in a hotel and eating out. This seems like it's more important than the league I was in last year where it was 5 minutes down the road. And so kids can sense when there's an increase in pressure. College athletes, let alone pro athletes, struggle with pressure. Why do we think kids have a crazy ability to handle it when the pros struggle with it? But again, we talked about this last week, this idea that you can place this professional model on young kids and expect them to rise to the standard. They cripple under it. Pros can hardly eat pressure for breakfast. Kids get eaten alive by the pressure. And so that's what's happening. We're spending all this money with well-intentioned our kids are internalizing, oh, there's a lot of pressure on the line right now, and they're collapsing under it and quitting.
Yeah.
There's a funny, and again, a little there's some comedian clip out there talking about youth baseball, and he makes the point that, there's 12 players on the team. They all got a $400 bat. That's almost $5,000 worth of aluminum in the dugout for what? He's like, for 2 hits. He's like, so we just paid $5,000 for 2 hits in this game, and he does it a lot more, the shtick and everything.
And that's less than the Dodgers.
Exactly. My goodness. And paid away. Anyways, I'm not going to make that comment. And then on the flip side, you've got numerous of I coach like club basketball, AAU type stuff. And how many times have we driven 8 hours to a tournament? And in the first game, we're playing a team that actually is half an hour away from where we live. And I'm like, okay, we just drove 8 hours to play teams that are really close. Anyway, it's just, it's kind of like one of those situations. You laugh if you're mad.
Yeah.
But you had another quote, and I think it goes along with this whole thing, where it's like, where scripture talks about being rich isn't, having lots of money isn't bad or sinful, but the love of it is. And you have a quote in your book says, coaches, and I say even coaches and parents need to be discipled or mentored or taught or intentional about their own personal growth in this area as well. And so it's like, okay, we're going to spend the money, we're going to spend the time, but then what's the messaging? And I feel like we focus so much on the kids' sport development. As parents and as coaches, are we being probably even more intentional in our own personal growth, so that our messaging, our purpose, how we're showing up every day, how we handle all the stuff we're wanting our players to handle, and they're sometimes 12 years old.
Yeah.
But we're spending no time getting better ourselves, so that even though we have all this data, making sure it's but we're still going to make the main thing the main thing. I just said a lot there, but yeah, just if you speak to that.
Yeah, I can respond to that. I think most parents would say one of the reasons we have our kids in sports is because it builds character. That there's this character aspect of sport. Yes, we want them to get better, we want them to have opportunities, but regardless, we're hoping it builds perseverance or discipline or some sort of character. And again, this is research that has been done. They have found it's hard for researchers to make a connection between just participation in sport and character being built, because there's so many variables that you can't measure. You don't know what the ref is never going to be a constant, right? You don't know if the coach is going to have high moral standards or low moral standards. You don't know what the culture of the team is going to be like. And so researchers have come out, and even virtue theorists have come out and said, I think this is in the Transformational Coaching book too by Joe Ehrman. Sports don't build character. It actually takes people to build character. And so for parents and coaches alike to understand, probably in sport culture today, this might be a hot take, but sports might be more likely to erode character in kids' lives than to actually build it, unless we have a high value of it ourselves as adults and begin imparting it to our kids. And so, Shane, this gets to what you're talking about. It really does start with us. We absolutely cannot outsource the discipleship of our kids to the world of sport, because the world of sport has already shown us its cards. The whole gambling thing that just came out recently, the win at all cost mentality, the amount of money that's been thrown into it. Man, the Romans 12 is going to tell us not to conform to patterns like that. Don't conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So it's really dependent on us as Christian men and women to feel to say, what does it look like for us to be transformed in this space? It means we need to reject this worldly vision of sport and replace it with one that actually can embrace the joy and the play, but take what's happening on the field, on the court, in the pool, on the track, and turn those into discipleship lessons, that we can actually partner with the Holy Spirit, who tells us like he wants to grow in our lives, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. That's what he wants to do. And sports is a beautiful breeding ground for that to happen, but it's dependent on us to see those instances and then turn those into teaching opportunities for our kids.
Hey listeners, be sure to check out our upcoming book, Significance Over Success. It's a collection of lessons and stories that dive even deeper into what it means to grow with purpose.
Hey everyone, it's Shane here. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know I'm passionate about coaching. Not just running practices or drawing up plays, but building culture, leading well, and helping athletes grow as people. For me, one of the biggest game changers in my coaching journey has been working with my mentor, JP Nurbin, and his program at TOC Culture. Now, TOC is all about transformational coaching, giving you a clear framework, the tools you need, and the accountability to apply them with your team. And now they've launched something brand new, the Coaches Gym. It's an all-inclusive hub for transformational coaches. Inside, you'll find courses on working with sports parents, managing playing time without the drama, building the foundations of great coaching, and earning your transformational coaching and culture certification. Plus, there's an entire library of ready-to-use tools and systems to equip you to build a championship culture, and a private community of coaches who are walking the same path you are. Now, I started working with JP back in 2018, and it was a game changer for me as a coach in my program. I've gone through the certification process, I've used the tools, and it's been massive in our success the last few years of building a championship culture, both on and off the court. If you're serious about becoming the kind of coach your players remember for life, you've got to check it out. And because you're a Grit and Growth listener, you can save $50 when you sign up. Just go to tocculture.com and enter Grit Growth as the coupon code. That's all caps, one word, GRITGROWTH.
What I continue to hear you say, and this just resounds true so much, is we just cannot outsource the discipleship of our children to the world. It's really important for us as parents to have these conversations, to have this mindset, and to recognize that sport, although it ought to and it can, it doesn't on its own.
Yeah.
And Joe's quote is that it requires a coach who possesses character, deep character, and moral integrity to then use sport to actually develop character through some intentionality and conversations of stuff this way, some front end grace as we're learning about here, and even back end grace in response of how we respond to maybe a bully on the football field, stuff like that. Right. This has been really good. One piece though still resonates true is there's still going to be the families who have a son or a daughter, a Shohei Ohtani child who might be a generational talent or just somebody that's passionate about the game, and they are very good. And it's easy to see from a preteen, teenage that they probably could play professional if they want to. Now, a lot of the stats show us that there's a pile of talent out there, and there's a lot of talent that quits really early too. And so I guess my question is how do we foster as families, if a parent insists on elite everything, what are some guardrails that can keep joy intact for that individual still as well, especially when they are maybe projected to be elite or being asked to play on all these elite programs and travel the country and international?
Yep. I think one of the biggest things is the kid needs to drive the bus of their athletic journey. And so if the kid is showing unusual potential, and I'm even cautious with saying that, I think we're so quick to label everyone who's showing any sort of potential as elites, when again, we want to project what an 8-year-old's doing, what they could do when they're 18, when we don't even know what their physical body is going to look like when they're 18. And so I would caution patience in saying, let's let this play out a little bit and not feel like we need to throw our entire life savings into it. So let's start with saying, let's involve them in the conversation. Do you want to play another season of hockey? Here are the options available. Here's what the most expensive one would require. It's going to cost us some money. Hey, we're willing to do that, but on your end, it's going to cost this amount of time, this amount of travel, which is, and be honest with them, it's probably going to take you away from a lot of margin in your life to maybe playtime with friends. Is this something you want? Would this be fun for you? Is this something you would want to do? And if they're all in, like, I think that's one of the situations where it's like, man, if they're wanting to do it, I don't think you need to like take out a second mortgage and empty your bank account, but let's find a way to make this work for them if they want to do it. But then in that process, there needs to be continual checks and balances of like, is this still fun for you? Hey, I know we just agreed to this. When it's over, do you want to do it again in another season, or do you just need a break right now? You're not going to disappoint us if you take a break. And for the parents, like, we actually have to believe that if we're going to say it out loud to them. So I think that's the biggest thing, guys, is like the kids need to drive the bus. And it doesn't mean that we don't get to be adults and help make decisions, but there has to be a want and a desire from them. Again, we can go back to, I don't want to just like researchers this to death, but they have discovered like the people who are the best of the best of the best of their field have this intrinsic desire where they just want to get up in the morning and get better at their craft, that they don't need mom and dad pushing them out the door. They don't need the elite league. They don't require something that can be bought. They have this innate God-given skill set, but also this mentality that just is like, I want to get better, and I'm willing to sacrifice time with friends. I'm willing to sacrifice some sleep. I'm willing to go through a little bit of pain in my body to actually improve and get better. It's a very small percentage of young kids who have that, but those are usually the ones that make it to the next whatever. We think the more money we invest, the better league, the better team, the better whatever is going to best position them to do it. At the end of the day, it's going to be those two things. Do they have this God-given skill? And do they have this God-given desire to actually want to get better at that skill without needing a coach or mom and dad to actually push them to do it?
I had to live through this 3 years ago. I coached all my sons in baseball, and my youngest was actually pretty good. And at the end, and he was only 12, but at the end of his 12-year-old year, just like I could notice a shift in his love for the game. The year before, he was always coming home after school, wanted to play catch, work on his pitching, take batting. Like I didn't have to push him. It was just, he would ask me, and I'm not the kind of dad that's going to make my kids go practice. I'm like, they have to want it. But I was like, oh man, he loves this game. Fast forward a year later, he's not coming. Like Dad, I want to work on pitching after school, but then he'd go play with his friends, right? Which is totally fine. And when we were at the field, he was a great teammate. He worked hard, great kid still. But I think we practiced outside of practice or games twice all summer. And I was like, man, I don't think he loves this. But you give him a basketball, he's waking up at 7 a.m. He's doing dribbling drills. He's very self-motivated. And we had to just have this conversation like, well, do you love this? He's like, well, I think I'll play maybe for a couple of years, but nah. And I was like, well, what do you really want to do? He's like, I actually want to go all in on basketball. And so then we started talking about what that looks like. And I said, well, then why don't we just do that? And he's like, but Dad, you love baseball. And I'm just like, yeah, I do. That's my thing. That's not your thing. Right. And like, it's amazing how a 12-year-old was sensitive, or just, it was almost like, I'm like, are you only doing this because it's me? Like, cause I haven't forced you to do this, but it's just like, it's funny how our kids will see that. Like, oh, Dad really wants this. I don't want to disappoint him, or something like that. Right. And I think that happens a lot. And parents, we're so unaware of that. Brian, your book, it's called The Christian Athlete. But you also have some amazing parts of the book, like that you're talking to coaches. And something I've been working through with my players, and if we could just touch on it real quick is, I coach, college men's basketball. I'm working with mostly, I think this year the range is 18 to 24-year-old young men, and I feel like as men, whether we're teenagers or we're fathers or grandfathers or whatever along journey, I think there's something deep down inside of us that's always asking the question, do I have what it takes?
Yeah. Yep.
Do I have what it takes to be a great dad? Do I have what it takes to be a great husband, a great coach, a great at my job, whatever it is? And I think it's something that nags us as men. And we can either use that as fuel or as fire, or it can drag us down in some ways. And you talk a lot about in your book about like motivation and where do we get our identity from?
Mm-hmm.
And like, again, I'm biased speaking to men. I have 3 young boys, not young boys, they're teenagers now. I have 3 boys. I'm coaching young men, and a misplaced identity. And my players are all like, yeah, basketball is basically my God. It's number one. It's what I worship. It's what I spend the most time thinking about.
Yep.
And we're trying to shift from that to like, let's play free without fear.
Yep.
And you can actually, maybe your performance will probably go up with way less stress.
Yeah.
Well, just to speak that whole identity and motivation piece.
Yep. Yeah. We need to speak that identity into them again, because this is part of our kind of a thread throughout this whole conversation. The identity that's going to be spoken into them through the world and culture of sport is going to be one that you need to prove yourself to everybody else to figure out who you actually are. That the real you is a result of your latest performance plus other people's opinions about you. That's the formula for your self-worth. How you play or perform plus what everybody's saying about you. And that's a crappy way to live. And it's a crappy way to get our identity in sport. It's such a good word, Shane, to say like, man, the young men that we coach and raise, they just want to know that they got what it takes. They want to know that they're enough. Like a phrase that I'm wanting to, even as you say that I want to make sure that I am communicating to my runners before we talked about this on the last one, before they run in the state meet this weekend, is I want them to know like, man, I'm so proud of you and I believe in you. Like how many times have they heard that in their life? Like an older man just saying, I believe in you. And I'm so proud of all the work that you put in. But they also, again, we talked about this, they also need to hear that after the state meet, regardless of whether we win or we take last place. They need to hear their coach say, I love you guys. I'm proud of you. And I believe in everything. Like they need to hear this not just before, but after as well. So yeah, I wonder for the coaches out there, guys, what it would look like. Like, what are those key phrases that your athletes, you think they need to hear that you could make a biblical connection to as well? Because what's happening in young kids' lives is a lot of times as parents, we'll go to parents, then we'll go back to coaches. As parents, our kids' first understanding of who God is as a heavenly father comes from the way they experience and interact with us. So the question is, man, are we embodying the best we can? I know we're not going to do this perfectly, but is there a conscious effort to embody the character of God as we parent our kids through sport, knowing that the way they understand God initially is going to be how they interact and understand our relationship with them? But then I wonder if that's true, guys, too, about coaches. Like how many athletes who maybe don't grow up with a spiritual background would be able to experience for the first time what the true character of God looks like just by the way we interact with them, the words we use with them, whether they succeed or fail, our posture towards them. We didn't even talk about that. It's one thing to say the right thing, but we've all experienced coaches when we fail, like we've seen the sigh of like, I just disappointed coach. And so, yeah, what would it look like to have this heightened awareness for us as coaches that, man, we actually get to represent who God is to these players right now. And I really do want to win on Saturday, but there's a bigger win available to my athletes than the one that's on the podium. The bigger win is whatever happens, man. Can I embody the character of God to them in a way that later, like 20 years down the line, they say, I've smelled this before. And it was when Coach Smith talked to me after the state meet. What I'm experiencing now early in marriage feels a little bit like the way Coach interacted with me when I was a senior. Man, that's the opportunity that we have before us as coaches is, yeah, they'll remember what happens statistically and on the scoreboard, but we can be involved in deep life change if we play by a better scoreboard.
And Brian, I think it's that brings up a similar point to back to Joe Ehrman's book. I mean, the studies show that he did the research on that we will remember 100% of the coaches
Yes.
that we played for. We may not remember their name, but we'll remember something either positive or negative that we experienced from them. And so it's a big calling. I think this has been a packed episode for our coaches and for our parents of just how important our job is and the opportunity that we have in raising the next generation of leaders and how intentional we need to be with our words. You talked about posture, a couple questions ago. I don't even remember we were unpacking something. Maybe it was just after the car ride home, but it's like, we just have to hold space for our kids sometimes. And we have to remember that, how we say something is oftentimes more important than what we say.
Yep.
And, I don't know. I've been listening to Bob Goff lately, and I know one of the pieces that he would talk about is he's trying to work on patience. And I'm going, me too. And it's like, let that first thought pass through your mind. Just take a breath, pause before you respond, because that first thought usually isn't the best one. He goes, so just let that one go by, and then respond. And so, as we, I think thank you for everything in today's episode. I just think there's a lot for our coaches. Shane, this is typical of Shane. He loves to, pull out a little consulting for his own coaching from each guest near the end, and gets a tidbit that he can take to his team's practice today. So well done, Shane. That was a good one.
Everybody will love that one. Everybody will love that one.
That's right.
Everybody wins.
Brian, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate the wisdom that you shared. I look forward to, we'll share about your books. I mean, The Christian Athlete, Glorifying God in Sports, and then your latest one just released this year, The Away Game, A Christian Parent's Guide to Navigating Youth Sports. I think everything we talked about today, I'm going to guess, is going to have a lot more depth in both of those books you've written.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Happy to be here. Excited to talk with you. Keep doing what you're doing. Love it.
Thanks so much for listening to Grit and Growth.
Yeah, hey, if you enjoyed that episode, it would mean a lot to us if you shared it with a friend, a teammate, a family member, or just left us a quick review wherever you listen. That's how we reach more people and keep great guests coming your way.
Yeah, and if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you don't miss future episodes with incredible guests and real stories that'll change and inspire you.
And until next time, stay curious, stay humble, and keep growing.